So our next speaker on the floor is Mr. Mayank Jain. Mr. Mayank Jain is also a very young person. He is just 45, and he is an independent filmmaker and a journalist. But more importantly, he is a fearless intellectual who is not afraid of exposing and explaining issues that are considered politically incorrect. Shri Mayank Jain has contributed a rich body of content on many contemporary national and global issues through the electronic media, focusing on the net and his films with original research and analysis. Currently, he is producing, directing, and scripting a 30-minute international film on the human rights of minorities in Pakistan and Bangladesh. He has also produced a famous film, India Tomorrow, The Gujarat Miracle, which showcases the development story of Gujarat along with Gujarat's fight against terrorism. He has also made a film on Naxalites and their victims in a film called Chhattisgarh Now. Even Union government has termed Naxalism as a big menace, so this film is definitely going to help them. And he has extensively covered Indian elections and participated in the exit polls on Doordarshan and Lok Sabha election TV. And he has directly weekly programs such as India's Most Wanted and Nishan. Who can forget Shoaib Ilyasi? I mean, he was the topmost anchor of his times. And Shri Jain is also working on a range of other subjects of national concern, such as international terrorism, economic reforms, economic liberalization in India, and the manufacture of ethanol from sugar cane and its application as a transportation fuel. I mean, that's a very important topic because these days mostly all the wars are fought for the hydrocarbons. So I guess we will be highly enlightened by the ideas of Mr. Mayank Jain.
In order to save time, I'll read fast from the paper so that most of the points can be covered. I want to discuss on this ideology of communal violence and the ideology of the communal violence bill. Because the people who really have an ideology, I mean the people who are responsible for communal violence, the kind of aggression they have in their ideologies, it's not necessary that you have to be secular, you have to be communal to have, to be violent. Naxalites are secular, they're violent. So you can also have a secular a bill against secular violence. You have Pol Pot, you had Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, Hitler, they killed 150 million people. And today Naxalites are following the same course. So it's not that just communal people do this. The communists have also done it. In my presentation, I would touch on the ideological aspects of communal violence in India. I will also discuss about the mindset that proposed this obnoxious bill on communal violence. Remember, this is the same lobby which had diluted the anti-terrorism legislation in India by repealing POTA after the defeat of the NDA. Justice Sacha Committee report is also a creation of these ideologues, and so are the Justice Ranganath Mishra Commission recommendations. The same group has now proposed the Communal and Targeted Violence Prevention Bill. It is clear that a huge conspiracy was hatched to prepare ground for this bill by a battery of communists, Naxal sympathizers, Islamic and Christian bigots, a very secular conspiracy indeed, to hurt the Hindus. They do not aim peace because they know secularism is no guarantor of peace. Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, and Hitler were all secular, but they killed 150 million people. In India, Naxalites who swear by secularism are not far behind when it comes to killings, murders, and rapes. Against them, if I ever get a chance, I would propose a secular and targeted violence prevention bill. It is not necessary for me to go into the technical aspects of the bill because Arun Jaitley and Dr. Swamy, both of them have done wonderful work on it, and they have proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the entire bill has been directed against the Hindus. I'm more worried about something else. It is clear that the people who have drafted the bill have an ulterior motive to harm the interests of the Hindu society. It is very surprising indeed that a highly anti-Hindu bill has been drafted quite blatantly and without bothering at all about an impending Hindu backlash. My worry, how is it that the votaries of the bill, that is the congressmen, the Muslim and Christian fundamentalists, along with their communist cohorts, are so confident that there would be no Hindu backlash as a result of this draconian bill? This is a very important question. There are many reasons, I feel, that they don't fear a Hindu backlash. Why don't they fear? One, there is a stranglehold of leftist intellectuals on the mass media who specialize in spreading lies about the Gujarat riots. The falsehood against Modi helps them to do an image makeover exercise for the proposed draconian communal violence bill. Many sections of an obliging media would be too willing to do a PR exercise, nowadays PR means paid relations, in favor of the proposed legislation. The second reason, lack of tall leaders in the national BJP headquarters who are busy fighting for small crumbs of power. They unfortunately lack the spine for any ideological fight, especially against opponents. They can fight, but not against the opponents outside their party. Lethargy and anti-intellectual attitude afflicting most of the so-called Hindu organizations. It's very important. Total lethargy, anti-intellectual attitude, and we constantly blame the communists and we blame the congressmen, but they are doing their work. But the so-called Hindu organizations are not doing their work. That is why such bills are drafted, otherwise they will not have the courage to draft such a bill. It is a sorry strait, but it's true. Ideological bankruptcy in many of those who pass as Hindu leadership was clearly visible when the Sachar Committee report was launched as a test balloon and there was only token response from the Parivar. When nothing happened after the Sachar report, the congressmen knew that there wasn't any goalkeeper on the Hindu goal post and they could score, they could go on scoring goal after goal. Today, what is happening today? All-out ideological attacks on the Hindu community, very frequent, very successful. We therefore see the Prime Minister of this country announcing in his address at the National Development Council that Muslims should have the first claim on the country's resources, which is absolutely, it's a very bad thing to do. First claim on national resources. Now, how can the Muslims have that claim? Soon after getting elected as the Chief Minister of UP, Akhilesh Yadav said that the Ranganath Commission recommendations and the Sachar Committee report would be implemented. The promises given by Mulayam Singh Yadav to Imam Bukhari are extremely dangerous. When we were trying to admit Kushwaha, at that time, Mulayam Singh Yadav was promising Imam Bukhari something very dangerous. He was saying that he has written this. This is in writing. Declaration of Muslims as backward and extending all the benefits to Muslims that other backward classes enjoy, immediate release and compensation for Muslims who have been jailed under the pretext of action against terrorism, special provisions for employment of Muslims and security forces of the state. These promises were being done when we were admitting Kushwaha, a corrupt man who was immediately tried by the CBI and investigated by the CBI. Now I'll come to the point of communal violence. I have done intensive study. We had a very macro view, Algeria, Indonesia, Thailand, everywhere these kinds of riots happen. But I will give you a very micro view, I went into a locality, the most sensitive locality in India, as far as communal riots are concerned. This area is called Kalupur Vidhan Sabha area of Ahmedabad. In 1998, I went to this area. And I went, there are polls in this area, So I'll go through this report, it'll be faster. Coming to the point of understanding communal violence, I have myself undertaking intensive research in India's most communally sensitive locality, the Kalupur Vidhan Sabha area of Ahmedabad. In September 1998, I had conducted an intense survey of the Kalupur Vidhan Sabha area in Ahmedabad to understand the cause and effects of communal riots in this historically volatile locality. In 1985, Ahmedabad was in grip of unprecedented communal frenzy. The Kalupur Assembly constituency was, as usual, the most disturbed. 2:30 p.m., June 6, 1985, Dabgarwar, Kalupur. In spite of heavy presence of army and curfew in the area, 9 Hindus were burnt alive in Dabgarwar by a Muslim mob led by an advocate named Munawar. In Dabgarwar, Hindus of a backward community had 100% presence. After this incident, all the Dabgars went away, and today all their houses have been occupied by the Muslim community. Hindu properties were sold at just 20% of the real value. Thus came into force the Gujarat Prohibition of Transfer of Immovable Property and Provision for Protection of Tenants from Eviction of Premises from Disturbed Areas Act 1986. More than 20,000 people belonging to the Hindu community migrated out of these areas. In most cases, they had to sell their properties at throwaway prices, sometimes even at a loss of 80% of their real value. Consequently, certain areas in Ahmedabad have now become Muslim areas after the Hindus had to flee these places. In 1954, in Kalupur, the population of Hindus was about 70% and the Muslims was hardly 30%. The total population, in 1998, Hindus were hardly 32% and Muslims were more than 68%. The situation had become opposite. Muslims had become a minority in 1954, by 1998 had become a majority, and a majority in 1954 had become a minority in 1998. Incidentally, the notorious mafia don Abdul Latif was a resident of this area. Latif's brothers purchased a property called Kumbharnu Dhelu in Dabgarwar after the riots. At the time of the sale of the property, the property was worth 17 lakhs. It was purchased for just 7 lakhs from the Hindu owner. People in Kalupur live in poles. A pole is a blind alley with about 100 houses with people belonging to the same caste. Now I have a list of poles where before 1985 there were 100% Hindus, and after 1985 there are no Hindus. Falka Pole, Vaida Pole, Mistrika Khemka, Tagara, Jivan Pole, Lal Babana Timbo, Changesh Pole, like this, there are many poles. I've given the list. So, Hindus are gone from this area. Now, strategy. What is the strategy of the land mafia which benefits from these riots? They identify the strong Hindu leader of that area, of that pole, number one. And they try to terrorize him. They ask him to leave the saffron flag. They also offer allurements. If they are unsuccessful in dissuading that Hindu leader, they normally kill him in a manner that his death is remembered for a long time. After the murders, the people start quitting the neighborhood. Then riots happen, you know. Hindu houses are attacked with explosives and people are stabbed and shot at will. After the incident, some Muslims call on these people as if to sympathize with them, but actually their purpose is to threaten and terrorize them. I have a list of the famous people who were murdered, and after that the polls were, you know, every time a murder used to happen, and after that the poll used to be empty. 14 May 1973, Ratilal Modi was murdered by a Muslim mob. He was stabbed, salt and spices were sprinkled on his wound, and he was burned alive at midnight at Daryapur Charwad. 2. In 1979, Dilip Dabgar was murdered. 3. 1985, 9 Hindus were burnt alive in Dabgarwar. Dabgarwar was emptied. In 1989, Bholia Patel was murdered. 100 Hindu houses were abandoned. After that, in Nane Satepari, Daryapur Crossroads, and Patel Pole by early 1992. On November 25, 1989, Manish Shah, young, dynamic, and brave Hindu leader belonging to the Jain community, was shot dead. He was a resident of Dhana Sutarni Pole. Abdul Latif was killed in a police encounter eventually. His brothers Abdul Razak, Ismail, Abdul Samad, Moin, and Aziz still live in that area. It is said that they have amassed assets to the tune of 1,500 crores. They are allegedly supported by an underworld bootlegger and Congress corporator, Hassan Lala. You know, this story is like this. All this reminds us of the direct action plan, you know, how the direct action plan, this story about Ahmedabad, how people started running away from Kalupur, and today Kalupur has become a Muslim majority area. Now this reminds me of the direct action plan, 1946, in Calcutta. This reminds me of what happened in Noakhali. And Noakhali, Justice G.D. Khosla wrote, the entire Hindu population of Noakhali had been robbed of all they possessed, and they were forcibly converted to Islam. And Edward Skinner Simpson stated in his report that 22,550 cases of forcible conversion took place. You know, like this, there are many, lots of data is there like that. But that was remote past. Now in the recent thing, you know, September 2010, Devganga, West Bengal, arson over a Durga temple. You know, they tried to destroy a Durga temple. And after that, there was arson, district police, rapid action force, CRPF, BSF could not control the riots. The army had to be called. But, you know, no consciousness anywhere in India. Nothing happened. Kanchan Gupta wrote that when there was, in Noakhali, the riots took place and 95% of the people were converted. There was a very bad situation. There was no Diwali in India. The whole of North India, there was no Diwali. There was no Diwali in eastern part of India. There was no diyas. But Devganga, the people were slaughtered. Mamata Banerjee's goons, this guy, Haji Nurul Islam, he was leading this riot mob. It has been reported in the press. I'm reading everything I'm reading from the press, whatever has been reported. But there has been no reaction to this at all. We are celebrating Diwali, we are celebrating Holi, we are celebrating everything. There is no consciousness. I like to say what was pre-Islamic India like. It was not like this. Megasthenes, when he came here, he said that this is a fantastic country. Here, if there is a war going on between two warring groups, they never touch the farmer. They never touch any civilian population. They allow them to do their work. They don't touch unarmed people. Pre-Islamic India had no history of attacks on non-combatants, the unarmed or civilians. India's hoary tradition had no majorities, no minorities. Communal violence was alien to the Indian soul till the arrival of Islamic invaders who plundered, murdered, and raped civilian populations, whose only code of conduct was to not have any code of conduct. There was plenty of argument in ancient India. We used to fight with each other. We had ideological differences. But there was no physical attack, especially on the subject that what should be the name of your God? What should be the form of your God? What should be your belief system? There used to be no attack on this ground. We never tried to win converts to appease our only God. We never tried to do it. We were not worried about the salvation of the other guy. We were never worried. These people are worried about the salvation of the other guy. That is why these riots happen. That is why this violence takes place. Our tradition was inclusive, non-aggressive. And there is no need to lecture Indians on the virtues of non-violence and human rights. These communists lecture us after killing 150 million people in Soviet Union, in Cambodia, in China. They come here and lecture us on human rights. They come and lecture us on the advantages of non-violence. And, but Pakistan has solved its majority-minority problem because they have no minority at all now. They've killed all the minorities. Whatever 1% is left, they're also, every day, some woman is abducted, and she is made a part of the majority community. That's how they're solving their minority-majority problem. Bangladesh is not far behind. They have, in fact, sent 2 crore Muslims to India. All the bordering districts, this Devganga, how the Muslims have become a majority there. Because 70% of the population in Devganga is Bangladeshi Muslims. So they have turned Indian bordering districts into zones of Pakistan. They are infiltrating. So they are turning majority, those Bangladeshi areas. Inside our borders, we are having a Bangladeshi majority adjoining all districts adjoining Bangladesh. See, minority, I have no sympathy for a minority as such. Because, in South Africa, you had a minority when South Africa was racist. They were ruling there. England was ruling here. They were in a minority. Then you had Muslims who were ruling here. They were also in a minority. So it does not show that, if you are in a minority, then you are vulnerable. No, it's not like that. Why are we vulnerable? It is the weakness in the Hindu psyche that encourages attacks by them, because we have lost our collective consciousness of being Hindu. We have been betrayed by our leaders. We have been betrayed by our leaders. Hindu society is ready, but they have been betrayed by the leaders. And we can't wait for a leader. We have to be a leader ourselves. We cannot wait for an Arjun to come. I have to be the Arjun. You have to be the Arjun. We can't wait for somebody to come and help us. We have to take the leadership in our hands and relieve us from this treachery. We must expose these people ideologically. The physical fight will boomerang. I don't recommend a physical fight. The fight has to be ideological. We have to expose the aggressive ideologies. We have to expose the communist ideology. We have to make a list of the crimes they have done, and they come here. And we need an intellectual Kshatriya, somebody who is ready to fight with words, fight with ideas. somebody, and only then, there'll be no attacks on us, and there'll be no violence, and there'll be sadbhavna. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayank Jain.